The prosecutors in the Young Thug case are calling the end for Young Thug. After countless attempts of Young Thug and his lawyers trying to get him released on bond, he was once again denied, as members of YSL are now snitching on Young Thug. Here's footage of the latest court hearing.
He's the one directing traffic. He is the one they're all afraid of. He's the one that's king slime. He is the most dangerous of the 28, Judge. And I implore you not to grant him a bond. He is dangerous. If he gets a burner, Judge, and the court may know this, a lot of the communications that Mr. Williams is on FaceTime, because it's not traceable, it's not trackable. Judge, I will also say that we have taken proffers from fellow from Mr. Williams. Some are on this indictment, some are not. They have stated uniformly that Mr. Williams is dangerous. They are afraid of him, that if they cross him, he will them and their family. And they were very clear about that.
Concerns that this court has is danger to persons and to intimidate other witnesses and obstruct the administration of justice. So and for those reasons in the aggregate, I'm going to deny bond at this time.
Now, during this court hearing, they structured three main reasons as to why Young Thug should never get released on bond. First reason is how Young Thug runs his operation. So during the hearing, it was revealed by YSL members that snitched on Young Thug is that he is the head of the organization. Young Thug would often purchase used iPhones from the streets and use them as burner phones. He would use these phones to FaceTime his troops to handle his business on the streets, whether it was narcotic related or even firearm related, or even going after rival street members. Now, when using FaceTime, it's impossible for law enforcement and cell phone providers to tap the phones to listen in on phone calls. FaceTime is often used by street members, as there's no trace of what's said in any call anywhere. Members that snitched on Young Thug also mentioned how dangerous he is. If you cross him, he will get you and your family. Which is why the members of YSL that are currently snitching to the feds right now are being placed in different county jails, and their families are going into witness protection. The next reason why prosecutors say Young Thug should never receive bond is during the YSL mansion where Young Thug lives, there was GTA type firearms found within the home. Now, these firearms are so unique that law enforcement stated they don't even know how he would have even received them or bought them. They used this to their advantage against Young Thug during the hearing, as they were telling the judge there's no way you can allow Young Thug, the leader of YSL, to be released on bond and back to his mansion. Firearms are littered all over the property, and he will have access to social media if he is released. He can be using social media as a way to direct the rest of the YSL members to commit acts on the streets. Now, with the last reason being, even with Young Thug behind bars, he's still organizing crimes and even having crimes started. An example of this in court was when the prosecution in the Young Thug RICO case announced they have proffers from YSL members that label him the head of the organization. We saw No Jumper report this. A YSL member was caught on an illegal cell phone trying to get someone on the outside to destroy evidence in the Young Thug RICO case. The county jail inmate using the illegal cell phone inside of jail allegedly came from the famous drone delivery that happened last week. Last week, it was reported this evidence in the courtroom. Garlington and Quantavius did unlawfully commit the felony offense of conspiracy to possess telecommunication devices by an inmate while speaking over a cell phone to an incarcerated Fulton County jail inmate. They discussed a plan to fly a drone carrying a cell phone beyond the guard lines to a window at the Fulton County jail. Now, it's no secret that Young Thug was being jailed at Fulton County last week. And to simplify what this evidence truly means, associates of YSL made a plan to fly cell phones taped to flying drones over the jail fence at Fulton County, then deliver these cell phones to the nearest window at the jail. Now, law enforcement watched these drones fly into the jail. Rather than stopping the drones and confiscating the cell phone, they actually allowed this phone to be used by inmates, as law enforcement then just wiretapped the cell phones. Now, with super creative police work, law enforcement tapped this phone and it just so happened to be used by YSL members. Law enforcement gained so much information on the YSL case due to this creative police work. So once the prosecution was done sharing why Young Thug should never be released on bond, it was then Young Thug's defense team's turn to share why he should be released. You tell me if you would release Young Thug after hearing this. Young Thug's lawyer shared this statement in court. Young Thug's lawyer filed an emergency motion in hopes of getting him released immediately on bond. Attorney Brian Steele says the YSL honcho is being held in total isolation in a windowless cement compartment with only a bed and a toilet. He then adds the jail cell has an overhead light that remains on 24 hours a day, preventing Young Thug from getting any sleep. Further, Steele says that Young Thug has no access to the media or any opportunity to exercise, shave, or have any human contact. And don't get him started on the food menu. According to his attorney, Young Thug is getting a tray of inedible food. Steele included quotes around the food sarcastically, but while it sounds like he's describing a stereotypical jail cell, Steele says the conditions violate Young Thug's constitutional rights, in particular the 8th and 14th Amendments. Next, the rapper's attorney Brian Steele then offered a huge $1 million bond package, meaning that Young Thug and his music label would spend $1 million paying off-duty officers to watch him live in his YSL mansion. This is to make sure that he doesn't leave the property or even commit any crimes while living at the comfort of his own home. Now, 300 Entertainment co-founder Kevin Liles even got onto the stand and offered to co-sign Thug's bond, stating that if Young Thug is released on bond and doesn't pay these off-duty officers, then he will. Now, after sharing why Young Thug should be released on bond, we actually begin to see Young Thug pray in the courtroom. Young Thug was literally praying in front of the judge to be released, but sadly was denied once again. According to law enforcement, both rappers Young Thug and Gunna are among the 28 named in the Fulton County District Attorney's indictment for the RICO Act. During the court hearing, law enforcement announced that Young Thug will now be facing 7 additional charges against him, felony charges of narcotics and firearms, that were all found during his YSL mansion being raided on Monday, May 9th. Here's a quick clip of the YSL mansion being raided and Young Thug being placed in handcuffs. Young Thug's lawyers tried negotiating the state's decision on Young Thug being denied bond. Judge Wolf finds the rapper to be a flight risk, as well as a risk of interfering with the RICO case and a risk of committing even more felonies if released. Young Thug's attorney, Brian Steele, asked the judge to reconsider, considering his client's ties to the Atlanta area. Steele also offered to take custody of the rapper's passport and suggested that the court could order Young Thug to wear an ankle monitor and confine him to his home. Sadly, Judge Wolf once again declined Steele's recommendations, citing the risk of of Young Thug possibly committing additional felonies. After this court hearing, Young Thug was then removed from the Fulton County Jail, being placed over at Cobb County due to law enforcement not wanting any issues between him and YFN Lucci, but Gunna will remain in custody at Fulton County until further notice. Many people believe that the end of Young Thug is all due to his beef with YFN Lucci. Law enforcement has been watching the beef between both rappers now ever since the year 2017. Now, on the weekend of August 18th, 2019, YFN Lucci posted to his Instagram story to tell his followers how he feels about Young Thug's new album, titled So Much Fun. While Young Thug fans had nothing but praise for the album, YFN Lucci appears to denounce the LP, calling it a cap album. Lucci wrote to his Instagram story, "Boy almost went number 2 on himself in Lennox. No cap." Now, I had to change the word that he used, but you understand the point. Now, on Young Thug's song Just How It Is, he says the lyrics, and I quote, "Last man tried me, almost got hit in Lennox. Ask the cops, ask the detectives. They know all the business." Now, Young Thug was right in these lyrics. The detectives definitely do, as they've been building this case ever since it started between him and YFN Lucci. Now, it didn't take long for Lucci's IG story to catch Young Thug's attention. In his own Instagram story, Young Thug didn't hold back against Lucci. In the story, he says that he would have ended YFN Lucci in the past if he didn't respect that the rapper is a family man. He goes on to say, "At YFN Lucci, if it ain't what you do for your mother and kids, I would have you." You can guess what he said. Now, Young Thug being so public about his beef with YFN Lucci is one of the biggest mistakes that he ever made in his career, as this is what started the entire YSL RICO case. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and don't forget to subscribe.